All right, let's talk about one of the biggest, most fundamental decisions you can make in software development: monolith versus microservices. This is a choice that can literally make or break a project down the line. So we're going to break it all down and figure out what you really need to know. You hear it all the time, right? It's the buzzword that just won't quit. Microservices are the future. But is that always the case? Is it the right answer for every single project out there? Well, today we're going to cut through all that hype and find out what's really going on. So to really understand this new hotness, we have to go back to the beginning. We have to understand what it was a reaction to. Let's start with the classic, the original, the monolithic architecture. At its core, a monolith is pretty much what it sounds like. Like one of those giant single stones. Every single part of your application, the user interface, all the business logic running in the background, how it talks to the database, it's all tangled up together, packaged and shipped out as one single unit. A really good way to think about it is like a big restaurant kitchen. When you're just starting out, maybe you've got a couple of chefs, a simple menu. This setup is fantastic. It's super efficient. Everyone's in the same room. Communication is easy. This is the monolith and its element. Let's imagine a simple e-commerce app. In a monolith world, the part that shows the products, the part that handles user accounts, and the part that processes payments are all deeply interconnected in one giant code base. And this is where the cracks can start to show. If you need to update just one tiny piece, say something in the payment system, guess what? You have to test and redeploy the entire application. And look, in the beginning, this is awesome. It's so easy to get started. You can build that first version of your app really, really fast. And for a small team, having everything in one place is just simpler. It is the perfect launchpad for a new idea. But what happens when your app gets popular? Suddenly, you have problems. Let's say your user account service is getting hammered with traffic, but the payment part isn't. Well, you can't just beef up the user service. You have to scale the whole thing. And worse, one little bug in some minor feature can bring the entire site crashing down. It becomes a maintenance nightmare. And it's exactly those growing pains that led to something new. The challenger entered the ring, designed specifically to solve the monolith's biggest problems. And that, of course, is microservices. So what in the world are microservices? Well, instead of that one big block of code, you break your application down into a whole collection of small, totally independent services. Each service is laser-focused. It has one job, one business capability to worry about, and it does that one thing really, really well. Now here's the real magic. Each one of these little services has its own code base, sometimes even its own dedicated database, and you can deploy them completely on their own. They talk to each other using APIs, which you can think of as just a set of rules for communication. It's kind of like a bunch of little independent businesses that all have to cooperate to get a big job done. And this is where you really start to see the power. Remember that scaling problem we had? Well, now you can just scale the user service, no problem. You want to try out a brand new programming language for the payment service? Go for it. And maybe best of all, if one service goes down, it doesn't sink the whole ship. For huge companies with tons of developer teams working at the same time, this is an absolute game changer. Okay, but, and you knew there was a but coming, it is not a free lunch. All of this flexibility comes at a cost. Managing dozens or even hundreds of separate services introduces a whole new universe of complexity. You need really solid automation, you need powerful monitoring tools, and trying to track down a bug that's jumping between 5 different services, man, that can be a real headache. Okay, so we have the classic, dependable monolith on one side and the modern, super flexible microservices on the other. And that brings us to the million-dollar question: which one is actually the right choice for you? This is the question every team has to grapple with. With all the articles, all the conference talks, the pressure to just jump straight into microservices from day one is huge. But is that really the smart play? The simple answer to that question? Absolutely not. The hype is just one part of the story. At the end of the day, it's about picking the right tool for the job you have right now. It really just boils down to your situation. If you're a startup trying to build your first product, an MVP, or you just have a small team, the monolith is your best friend. It lets you move fast. But if you're operating at the massive scale of a Netflix or an Amazon with hundreds of developers working on a super complex system, well then microservices become almost a necessity to keep things manageable. So if there is one thing you take away from all of this, let it be this simple rule of thumb. Start with a monolith. Don't burden yourself with all the complexity of microservices from the get-go. Build a successful, simple application first. Then, when, and only when, the pain of keeping that monolith running becomes greater than the pain of moving to microservices, that's your signal. That's when it's time to evolve. All right, let's wrap this up by putting everything on the table, side by side, for one final crystal clear look. This should really help lock in the core differences. So check this out. With a monolith, deployment is a breeze. It's one thing, but you have to scale the whole app. With microservices, you get that pinpoint scalability, but your teams and your tech stack get way more complex. And notice that last row. That's the key. A monolith starts simple, but its complexity grows over time. Microservices, well, they kind of force you to deal with a high level of complexity right from the start. And that leaves us with the real final question, the one you should take with you and keep asking yourself. As your project grows, as it succeeds, at what point does that initial wonderful simplicity start holding you back? Knowing when to make that jump isn't just a technical decision. It's really the art of building software that's built to last.